An Astrologer's Day by R.K. Narayan. R.K. Narayan was born in 1906 and he died in 2001. Rasipuram Krishnaswamy Iyer Narayana Swamy was one of the best known novelists among Indian English writers. He is the author of 14 novels, 5 volumes of short stories, and a number of travelogues, and has a collection of non fiction to his credit. He also wrote his memoir, My Days, in 1975. And Narayan created the imaginary town of Malguri, where realistic characters in a typically Indian setting lived amid unpredictable events. His stories are grounded in compassionate humanism and celebrated the humor and energy of ordinary life. His stories are characterized by a simple style and subtle humor. Narayan was introduced to American readers in 1952 by the Michigan State University Press. These include Swami and Friends, The Bachelor of Arts, The Dark Room, An Astrologer's Day, and other stories. Mr. Sampath, The Financial Expert, Waiting for the Mahatma, The Guide, and many other books. His novel The Guide won him the Sahitya Akademi Award in 1961, the most coveted literary honor in India. His writing is distinguished by humor and unoffending irony, a unique Indianness and simplicity which is utterly charming and authentic. Narayan typically portrays the peculiarities of human relationships and the ironies of Indian daily life. His style is graceful, marked by genial humor, elegance, and simplicity. An Astrologer's Day. Punctually at midday, he opened his bag and spread out his professional equipment, which consisted of a dozen cowrie shells, a square piece of cloth with obscure mystic charts on it, a notebook, and a bundle of Palmyra writing. His forehead was resplendent with sacred ash and vermilion, and his eyes sparkled with a sharp, abnormal gleam, which was really an outcome of a continual searching look for customers, but which his simple clients took to be a prophetic light and felt comforted. So the author has explained this physical gesture, or the kind of how this astrologer looks, how is sitting in along with that cowrie shells and obscure mystic chart, a notebook, a bundle of Palmyra writing on which actually those people write in a kind of a palm leaf, and they show that they have written a sort of future in that. And his forehead was resplendent with a kind of a sacred ash, that you can say that he was trying to show that he's a kind of holy saint, and he has got some supernatural powers with which he will be able to tell the future of the customers who are visiting him. So, and he used to look for the customers because he has to find one from them only. So his eyes were like uh, trying to search anyone who is coming to him. The power of his eyes was considerably enhanced by their position placed as they were between the painted forehead and the dark whiskers which streamed down his cheeks. Even a half-wit's eyes would sparkle in such a setting. To crown the effect, to wound a saffron-colored turban around his head. This color scheme never failed. People were attracted to him as bees are attracted to cosmos or dahlia stalks. So look at the comparison that the author has used here with the astrologer, how the people are attracted to the astrologer when they find him in that kind of saffron turban and the kind of beard and the sacred ash that he is using. So like the bees are attracted to dahlia stalks, similarly the customers are attracted to this astrologer. He sat under the boughs of a spreading tamarind tree which flanked a path running through the town hall park. It was a remarkable place in many ways. A certain crowd was always moving up and down this narrow road from morning till night. So I guess that you all must have witnessed those kind of people who are sitting either on the a railway platform side or near some mall, and when they have such sort of gestures, such sort of thing, they really choose such part of place where there will be so many people moving up and down. So he has also chosen such sort of place and he used to sit there from morning till evening. A variety of trades and occupation was represented all along its way: medicine sellers, sellers of stolen hardware and junk, magicians, and above all, an auctioneer of cheap cloth who created enough din all day to attract the whole town. Next to him, in vociferousness, came a vendor of fried groundness. So vociferousness, that kind of very loud and noisy environment it was. It was a marketplace, and so many people are moving, selling things. Hawkers are there. So in that, there was also a kind of groundnut seller who was selling that fried groundnut over there, who gave his ware a fancy name each day, calling it Bombay ice cream one day, and on the next Delhi almond, and on the third Raza's delicacy, and so on and so forth. And people flocked to him. So even if you have visited to any sort of fair, village fair, or a kind of crowded place where you have found some sort of hawkers who are taking such names for the thing that they are selling. So look at this groundnut seller who is giving different names to his groundnut. Someday he's telling it Bombay ice cream, and then Delhi almond, then Raza's delicacies. So with these names, actually, he is able to grab new customers for him. A considerable portion of this crowd dallied before the astrologer too. So as the people are sometimes with suspiciously, sometimes just really to know that what this man is doing, people really came to him just to hang around with this astrologer. The astrologer transacted his business by the light of a flare which crackled and smoked up above the groundnut heap nearby. Half the enchantment of the place was due to the fact that it did not have the benefit of municipal lighting. The place was lit up by shop lights. So if you have gone to any small town or a small village, you might have found that there most of the places the municipal light is not there, and the hawkers use their own light along with them. Even on like Mumbai railway station, you will find that people sometimes are using their own light to get the light for the customers just to sell their things. So the astrologer transacted his business by the light of a flare which crackled and smoked up above the groundnut heap nearby. Half the enchantment of the place was due to the fact that it did not have the benefit of municipal lighting. The place was lit up by shop lights. One or two had hissing gas lights, some had naked flares stuck on poles, some were lit up by old cycle lamps, and one or two, like the astrologer, managed without lights of their own. It was a bewildering crisscross of light rays and moving shadows. This suited the astrologer very well, for the simple reason that he had not in the least intended to be an astrologer when he began life. And he knew no more of what was going to happen to others than he knew what was going to happen to himself next minute. He was as much a stranger to the stars as were his innocent customers. So this is an ironical statement here. You can find the irony. This man who is going to tell the future of the people, future of the customers who is coming to him, he himself is not aware of his future, what is going to happen with him next. Yet he said things which pleased and astonished everyone. That was more a matter of study, practice, and shrewd guesswork. All the same, it was as much an honest man's labor as any other, and he deserved the wages he carried home at the end of a day. Yes, of course, if you talk about an astrologer who is doing such sort of business, he might be so tricky, he might have such sort of knowledge of looking at the people with such sort of vigilance that he is able to understand that what kind of feeling will be there at that moment, and what does that kind of feeling on the face show. He might be in some kind of trouble, and you know that everyone is just suffering some or the other sort of problem, and it's written on the face sometimes, whether you are happy, you are sad, or you are having a normal life. So it's just a kind of interpretation that this man used to make, and it is said by the author that whatever money he used to take was just reasonable for him because he was really doing some sort of work, observation, you can say. He had left his village without any previous thought or plan. If he had continued there, he would have carried on the work of his forefathers, namely, tilling the land, living, marrying, and ripening in his cornfield and ancestral home. But that was not to be. He had to leave home without tailing anyone, and he could not rest till he left it behind a couple of 100 miles. To a villager, it is a great deal as if an ocean flowed between. So yes, for a villager, just to leave his place is actually not so easy for them. Those who love villages, those who love farming, they want to stick to their land. But as he has flown from that place, as he has left that place, there might be something that we will come to know later on in the story. He had a working analysis of mankind's troubles, marriage, money, and the tangles of human ties. Long practice has sharpened his perception. Within 5 minutes, he understood what was wrong. He charged 3 pies per question, never opened his mouth till the other had spoken for at least 10 minutes, which provided him enough stuff for a dozen answers and advices. So look at the trick that he has adapted. At first, he used to learn everything about that person who has come to him. Yes, of course, the one who has a problem, he will reveal all the things that he has within his mind, within his head. And once he is able to know all the things, he tries to give his own interpretation based on what experience he has learned. When he told the person before him, gazing at his plan, in many ways you are not getting the fullest result for your efforts, 9 out of 10 were disposed to agree with him. Or he questioned, is there any women in your family, maybe even a distant relative who is not well disposed towards you? Or he gave an analysis of character. Most of your troubles are due to your nature. How can you be otherwise with Shatton where he is? You have an impetuous nature and a rough exterior. Impetuous, you see, impulsive, that means you are able to react easily. And endeared here is likable, so this endeared him to their hearts immediately. They used to believe him very easily based on what he used to tell them. For even the mildest of us loves to think that he has a forbidding exterior. The nuts vendor blew out his flare and rose to go home. This was a signal for the astrologer to bundle up too, since it left him in darkness except for a little shaft of green light which strayed in from somewhere and touched the ground before him. He picked up his cowrie shells and paraphernalia, all the kind of equipment that he was carrying, and was putting them back into his bag when the green shaft of light was blotted out. He looked up and saw a man standing before him. He sensed a possible client and said, you look so careworn. It will do good to sit down for a while and chat with me. The other grumbled some reply vaguely. The astrologer pressed his invitation, whereupon the other thrust his palm under his nose, saying, you call yourself an astrologer? The astrologer felt challenged and said, tilting the other's palm towards the green shaft of light, yours is a nature. Oh, stop that, the other said. Tell me something worthwhile. Our friend felt piqued. I charge only 3 pies per question, and what you get ought to be good enough for your money. At this, the other withdrew his arm, took out an anna, and flung it out to him, saying, I have some questions to ask. If I prove you are bluffing, you must return that anna to me with interest. If you find my answer satisfactory, will you give me 5 rupees? No. Or will you give me 8 annas? All right, provided you give me twice as much if you are wrong, said the stranger. This pact was accepted, and little further argument, the astrologer sent up a prayer to heaven as the other later cherub. The astrologer caught a glimpse of his face by the match light. There was a pause as cars hooted on the road. Jitka drivers swore at their horses, and the babble of the crowd agitated the semi-darkness of the park. The other sat down, sucking his cheroot, puffing out, sat there ruthlessly. The astrologer felt very uncomfortable. Here, take your Anna back. I'm not used to such challenges. It is late for me today. He made preparation to bundle up. The other held his wrist and said, you can't get out of it now. You dragged me in while I was passing. The astrologer shivered in his grip, and his voice shook and became faint. Leave me today. I will speak to you tomorrow. The other thrust his palm in his face and said, challenge is challenge. Go on. The astrologer proceeded with his throat drying up. There is a woman. Now here you can see the trouble that has come to the astrologer. Right now we don't know what trouble it is, but he has seen something in the match light that the client was using to light his chariot. So when he saw the face, now he was not ready to deal with this new client and he just wanted to run away. But now the client has taken him and he said, you have to return me that amount what you said, or else I'm not leaving you. So he was telling that now challenge is a challenge. So both of them are actually of equal kind of arguer. Both of them are arguing. One is trying to leave it, just move away. It's not because he's scared. Remember, he's not scared for his whatever fortune he will be telling or whatever he will be expressing. He's scared for something else. He's scared as he has seen someone in the match light with whom he is really afraid of. Now let's see what happens. Stop, said the other. I don't want all that. Shall I succeed in my present search or not? Answer this and go. Otherwise, I will not let you go till you disgorge all your coins. So now our astrologer is in problem. So he has been asked that if he's not answering his question, then he has to give all his coins to the client. The astrologer muttered a few incantations and replied, "All right, I will speak, but will you give me a rupee if what I say is convincing? Otherwise, I will not open my mouth, and you may do what you like." After a good deal of haggling, the other agreed. The astrologer said, "You were left for dead. Am I right?" "Ah, tell me more." "A knife has passed through you once," said the astrologer. "Good fellow." He bared his chest to show the scar. "What else?" "And then you were pushed into a well nearby in the field. You were left for dead." "I should have been dead if some passerby had not chanced to peep into the well," exclaimed the other, overwhelmed by enthusiasm. "When shall I get at him?" he asked, clenching his fist. "In the next world," answered the astrologer. "He died 4 months ago in a far off town. You will never see any more of him." The other groaned on hearing it. The astrologer proceeded, "Guru Nayak." "You know my name?" the other asked, taken aback. "Yeah, as I know all other things, Guru Nayak. Listen carefully to what I have to say. Your village is 2 days' journey due north of this town. Take the next train and be gone. I see once again great danger to your life if you go from home." He took out a pinch of sacred ash and held it to him. "Rub it on your forehead and go home. Never travel southward again, and you will live to be 100." So there is something fishy in the story what our astrologer has told this man. Look, he's not kind of such man who can know about all these things just with his some third eye or something. He knew just because he might be aware of that incident when all of these things which was happening with Guru Nayak, he must be a kind of witness, or it is very possible at this moment we know that he might be the one who tried to kill him. Our astrologer might have tried to kill Guru Nayak. "So why should I leave home again?" the other said reflectively. "I was only going away now and then to look for him and to choke out of his life if I met him." He shook his head regretfully. "He has escaped my hands. I hope at least he died as he deserved." "Yes," said the astrologer. "He was crushed under a lorry." The other looked gratified to hear it, and we know very well this is only called irony of situation. Now, what is irony of situation? Here, as a reader, we will come to know that the one our astrologer is talking about is not dead, but he is living. He was not crushed under a lorry, but it is to be believed by the client, our Guru Nayak, that his murderer, the one who tried to kill him, has been crushed under a lorry. So this is called irony of situation, where the reader knows the situation while one of the character is not aware of the actual situation. The place was deserted by the time. The astrologer picked up his articles and put them into his bag. The green shaft was also gone, leaving the place in darkness and silence. The stranger had gone off into the night after giving the astrologer a handful of coins. It was nearly midnight when the astrologer reached home. His wife was waiting for him at the door and demanded an explanation. He flung the coins at her and said, "Count them." One man gave all that. 12.5 annas, she said, counting. So here you must know that what 1 anna is. Actually, 4 annas make 25 paise and 8 annas makes 50 paise. So for 1 rupee, actually he asked for 1 rupee from the man. That means he asked for 16 annas. But out of the 16 annas, he was only given 12.5 annas. So she was overjoyed. "I can buy some jaggery and coconut tomorrow. The child has been asking for sweets for so many days. I will prepare some nice stuff for her." "The swine has cheated me. He promised me a rupee," said the astrologer. She looked up at him. "You look worried. What is wrong?" "Nothing." After dinner, sitting on the pure, he told her, "Do you know a great load is gone from me today? I thought I had the blood of a man on my hands all these years." Blood of a man means he really believed that he has killed someone in his life. And that was a kind of burden on his head. And it is very possible that he has left that village just because he had killed someone. "That was the reason why I ran away from home, settled here, and married you. He is alive." She gasped. "You tried to kill him?" "Yes. In our village, when I was a silly youngster, we drank, gambled, and quarreled badly one day. Why think of it now? Time to sleep," he said, yawning and stretched himself on the pure. So this is actually the story. in which we learn that how the astrologer himself didn't know what is going to happen to him, but he used to tell the fortune to others. So this is the irony of the story. And the other irony is that the person who was trying to search the man all around, the one who has tried to kill him, he was in front of him, but he couldn't recognize because that person had a kind of weird shape. He was using all the sort of turban and that ashes and then the beard that he had. So with that, he might not be able to recognize his murderer, but that person was able to recognize this man whom he tried to kill, and with whom not only he just teased him, he made him to move to some other direction, but also he made some money from him. Okay, thank you so much. I hope that you have enjoyed this lesson.